Most researchers who use computer-assisted qualitative analysis software limit its use to the coding and retrieving of text segments. Many people think of qualitative analysis software as a really good electronic filing cabinet. But you can do more with it. You can actually use it to build your own theory, and I think that is a really cool and exciting thing to do. When qualitative researchers speak about theory building, it is assumed that this is something that will be done in the mind and possibly with the use of paper, if at all. In a sense, all research studies and indeed all observation is driven by some kind of theory, but not all research studies need to be explicitly theorized. Let me explain that for a bit. You have certain assumptions or beliefs about the social world that will always be present and will influence your observations. Having said that, the degree to which theory is an explicit part of your research can vary. Before you start your own research, you will usually have to do some kind of review of the literature. That is, you'll have to read what other academics have already published on the topic that is of interest to you. And this is useful since you probably don't want to reinvent the wheel. Certain ideas are already out there. They're accepted by the scientific community, and your own research usually builds upon existing knowledge. A lot of qualitative research is not explicitly theorized, but is descriptive and common sense. However, if you're really ambitious about your research, then computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software can really help you build your very own theory. By theory building, I mean generating theory and testing theory. What you need, though, is a software with the capacity to map out ideas in diagrams or to give you conceptual networks. I don't want to tell you which kind to use, but a quick Google search will give you quite a few options. And most will offer a free trial period. You can also find some free alternatives online. Anyway, links between concepts can be visually represented in a number of ways. For instance, one type of link could mean X causes Y. Another could be X correlates with Y, or X depends on Y, or X loves Y, and so on. The diagram is linked to coded segments of data instances of X and data instances of Y, or instances where X is where also Y occurs, or instances of Y where X is not present, and other things like that. I'm going to give you an example of how this looks, and I'm going to use a study by Glasser and Strauss from 1964. Now, they didn't actually use any software, since social scientists only started to use computers to analyze qualitative data in the 1980s. But if Glasser and Strauss had, this is what might have happened. They recorded instances of nurses talking about the care of patients who had died. Now imagine that they selected all of these instances, which they might have coded as nurse talk, and found that some of these stories center on the topic of social loss. Now remember, these were comments made by nurses that indicated the extent to which they felt that a particular patient or a particular death constituted a social loss or not. These instances could have been coded as social loss. And the category of social loss also contains some variations. For instance, a nurse could say of a 20-year-old man that he was going to be a doctor, or of a 30-year-old mother who will look after the children now, or of an 18-year-old woman, oh well, she had a good life. Such findings could have been established by software retrieving word strings like age or years. Glasser and Strauss found that the age of the patient was an important factor in determining the properties of social loss stories. So the younger the patient, the greater the social loss reported. And there are also other factors. For instance, educational and occupational class were also important for the social loss reported. So basically, the greatest level of social loss included something like a young patient with high education or high education promise and high social class. And then the lowest level of social loss included an elderly patient with low education and low social class. Also, they found another category, and that is of nurses' composure, which was disrupted at moments of high social loss. So when a nurse was telling a high loss story, it was more likely that she would lose her composure, and she would show emotions such as sadness, hurt, disappointment, or helplessness. So if we were to map out the relationship between these two categories, high social loss or social loss story and composure, this is what we would get. The arrows indicate the features of patients considered in high loss stories. The properties of social loss stories interact. For example, if an elderly person of high education and high social status died, this will be less likely to result in the loss of composure. Very different from this would be a situation involving a younger person with high education and social class, which would result in the loss of nurses' composure. So why would any of this matter? And what kind of theory could you help develop about the relationship between professionals and their clients based on this diagram? For instance, you could start looking and testing to see if the patients considered to have a high social value and whose death is seen as a high social loss are more likely to receive rapid attention from nurses. And this is exactly what Glasser and Strauss found in their research. And what this means is that at the time of the study, the patients that were seen to have a high social value were likely to receive more attention from nurses and quicker attention from nurses than those who were seen to have a lower social value. And you might wonder if things are the same or different today. And I don't know, but that is something that's worth studying. In conclusion, even though the basic and the much used features of computer-assisted qualitative analysis software are code, search, and retrieve, they can also be used to facilitate theory building and innovative approaches to presenting and reading research reports. So next time you do a qualitative research, maybe you should consider including a computer-generated visual map or some sort of diagram in your report. And who knows, your finding may lead to positive social change.